hang on to your seat, baby, cause this one's a screamer.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
What's going on, entertainers? So time coming to y'all with another video. Okay, we're doing the Hollywood Hot Topics. You already know what to do. Make sure I hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know what y'all think about this video. Okay, so we got a couple of stuff we're gonna talk about. Now, David had a hearing today, and I was able to get the court docs that describe in detail some more details about what he allegedly did with Celeste. It's not even alleged at this point. I will say this. I don't care what anyone says, especially after reading this document. I feel like he didn't do it himself. He had people helping him, and that body was not supposed to be in that trunk. I believe, in my opinion, what happened was somebody was supposed to move the body somewhere else outside of the trunk, and then that person basically got scared and didn't do it and kind of let him down. Because I don't think he would be that dumb enough to leave it there knowing it could easily be towed. So I believe when he was touring wherever he was, that's the time frame that that person was supposed to take the body, put it somewhere. That way, when he comes back, do what he got to do with it, with the shovel and all that stuff that he was buying. That's what I feel like he intended to happen, but it did not go in his favor because somebody gave up. I watch a lot of ID channels, so I refuse to believe he operated on his own. But just as we thought this case couldn't get any sicker, more sadistic, more sacrificial, more demonic, it gets all of that plus more. Okay, so this is the official PDF of the Superior Court of the State of California for the County of LA against David Anthony Burke. That's his full name. Okay, now in this document, it describes a lot more in detail as to what allegedly was done to Celeste. I'm just saying that for legal purposes, but we all know he did it or had something to do with it. The dismemberment of Celeste and also stuff that was purchased as well. So let's say on September 8th, 2025, the manager of the tour where the Tesla has been impounded noted the strong smell of decay and the presence of flies coming from the vehicle. He notified LAPD, who determined the Tesla was registered to defendant through departmental resources. At the toy yard, LAPD detectives opened the Tesla's front storage compartment and observed a black cadaver bag covered in insects. Inside the bag, they discovered a severely decomposed head and torso. A plastic garbage bag beneath the black cadaver bag contained the dismemberment arms and legs. However, the victim's ring and pinky fingers on her left hand had been amputated and were not found in the Tesla. And I really believe the reason why he didn't do everything on his own all at once is because of his busy lifestyle. With him being on tour, I did not realize how big of a celebrity he was until he did this, of course. But doing a little digging, like he has a big fan base. You could even see it because if you go to his page, I want y'all to do this. Go to his page, right? And you're gonna see and go to his older posts. You probably will see some of your mutuals liking his pictures. They probably knew of him or knew some of his music. This man had a huge following. So with him having concert dates and all that stuff and being busy, I feel like he didn't have enough time to do everything all at once. That's why I think he relied on another person to get it done, but they didn't fulfill the job. Okay. They said pursuant to their investigation, LAPD robbery homicide detectives determined the victim and defendant met in January 2022 when she was 11 years old. They began a relationship in November 2023 when the victim was just 13 years old and the defendant was just 18. This is why it's extremely important to watch what your kid is doing. I have a Discord group chat, but people in there, I make sure to monitor it so it's nothing like that could get me into any legal trouble. The topics we talk about, they're mostly gossip. So it's nothing to the point where it's going to be extremely like graphic or like pornographic, because that's one of the apps I feel like that's easily preyed upon in regards to people that have a high status. If they if kids have access to that app, they can be talking to anyone around the world. That's what people do not know. That Discord app is, from my understanding, I believe it's international. So that's how he was even able to access Celeste to even begin with. Detectives learned the victim had been reported missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department by her family, who lived in a lake in February and April 2024. RCSD telephonically contacted defendant on February 17, 2024, after they identified a phone number in the victim's phone records that belonged to him. During the call, defendant claimed he had spoken to the victim last on February 13th or 14th, 2024, but stated he was unaware she was a minor or she had been reported missing. RCSD advised him that LA Sheriff's Department deputies would be coming to his home. On that day, defendant was living at 804 North Doney Place in West Hollywood. RCSD requested that LASD conduct a welfare check at the defendant's home. LASD deputies went to defendant's home that night at 8:15 and informed him that the victim was a 13-year-old runaway. Defendant again claimed he was unaware she was a minor and he only had met the victim once in person in November 2023. However, defendant showed deputies a yearbook photo of the victim he had on his cell phone. Although he had claimed to be unaware where the victim was at the time, she returned home 2 days later. Child, my whole thing is this: I don't get criminals who are bad at lying and don't know what they're doing. Then why the hell did you, like, you might as well just do it and turn yourself in. Like, I refuse to understand that concept, like, at all. Like, what? How do you not know her like that, but you have a picture of her yearbook in your phone? Her yearbook picture on your phone. Make it make sense. Like, that's just like, oh. They said, despite being informed by the law enforcement the victim was only 13 years old, the defendant continued to pursue her. So this is where the sickness comes in, because you get kind of caught up. You would think a logical person with at least some common sense would stop and not continue to pursue a minor. But this is somebody who is a PDF file. This is why I say on this channel 1,000,001 times, it does not make sense why somebody who is a PDF file gets a lesser charge than somebody who gets caught selling powdered donuts or weed. That to me will never make sense in the justice system. I don't get how that's even a thing, because best believe that first time he had that run-in with the officers and they questioned him and they let him know that, and something was really done about that criminally, she would still probably be alive to this day. But no, they take cases when it comes to PDF files like it's nothing. And you would have thought he just stole a bag of chips or something, and he wasn't communicating with a child sexually. But they don't care. Despite being informed by law enforcement, the victim was only 13. Defendant continued to pursue her. After the victim returned home in February 2024, her parents took her cell phone away. Defendant drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone defendant purchased so they can stay in contact. Throughout 2024, the victim spent a significant amount of time with the defendant, including summer weekends at his home in the Hollywood Hills and traveling with him to Las Vegas, London, Texas to meet his family. Text exchanges between the victim and the defendant contain references to sex, pregnancy, unaliving of a child, and the use of Plan B emergency contraceptives. There were also explicit photographs documenting and corroborating their relationship. In November 2024, defendant and the victim broke up. Ugh. The fact they wrote that is just like, broke up. How he gonna break up with a child? Let's start there. Although they continue to communicate in text messages, suggest they also continue to have relations. So Dave is a piece of crap. And I don't get, it's the fact that he's in that jail just PC the hell up as if he's a celebrity. And then the man had the nerve, the gall, to request a haircut and a change of clothes as if he about to go down somewhere to the corner store. Nigga, you in jail. Who you looking good for? April 23rd, 2025 is likely the date of the victim's death, when all her cellular activity ceased. The night prior, April 22nd, 2025, defendant and the victim engaged in a lengthy argument described in detail in their text messages. The messages revealed the victim's jealousy over the defendant's relationships with other women, as defendant may be children, as defendant led her to believe they had a future together. She became extremely upset and threatened to disclose damaging information about her relationships with the defendant to end his career and destroy his life. Defendant's first solo album was due to be released on April 25th, 2025. He had an emerging multi-million dollar career already in progress. He had multiple product endorsements, which were highly profitable. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, a lot of people knew who he was. I was not aware of who he was. Because in my opinion, like, his artistry is already troublesome because his target audience is children. A lot of the fandom that you would see that would show up to support him were children. I get he was young, but ain't no teens or no preteens should have been listening to "As Long As I'm With You, I Keep My Eyes on My Vein." Like, they shouldn't be listening to that. At approximately 8:40 on April 23rd, 2025, the defendant sent an Uber to transport the victim from her Lake Elsinore home to his residence. They communicated before and during her Uber ride, which dropped her off at the defendant's Hollywood Hills home around 10:10 p.m. At approximately 10:30 p.m., defendant sent text messages to the victim inquiring where she was. The people contend that was a part of the defendant's premeditated plan to cover up the unaliving, as she was already unalive by this time. So after that argument, she probably threatened to expose. This is where this whole story comes out of. He unalived her because he did not want her to say publicly that they were together, because he didn't want his artist image ruined, because you would be a PDF file, which is one of the worst things you could ever have attached to your name. So that's why he unalived her. So he texted her, which is such a stupid ass trick too, because that could easily be tracked. Because if you send an Uber and it drops her off at that time, that Uber record, he's dumb as hell too. I'm not trying to give him his people how to get away with that, but like, if he was somebody with common sense, why would you send an Uber that could easily be tracked time versus sending somebody you know to pick the person up? That's the idioticness, and this is why you could tell he's a young dumb nigga, straight up, stupid. So that time frame, it could have easily been tracked. Let's say he deleted the account or something on her phone, the Uber driver's phone could track that. Like, they could contact Uber and get that time record, and through the Uber driver's phone. So I say, knowing he had to silence the victim before she ruined his music career, as she had threatened very soon after her arrival at his home, defendant the victim to multiple times and stood by while she bled out. At no time did he call law enforcement or 911 or take her to emergency room to attempt to save her life. Despite knowing she was unalive and her family was trying to find her, the evidence will show defendant lied and claimed he didn't know where she was. In fact, defendant drove to Santa Barbara County immediately after the victim unalive, attempting to dispose of her property and destroy evidence. At approximately 11:30 on April 23rd, 2025, he drove away from his home as he texted and called the victim's phone asking where she was. Again, these were acts calculated and planned to set up his defense within a very short timeline after the victim's vicious unaliving. Defendant drove his Tesla north on the 101 freeway to San Marcos Pass Road, SR 154, near Lake Cachuma. Okay, some of these cities I never heard of. Lake Cachuma in Santa Barbara County. He returned home early the following morning on April 24th, 2025, before going to a radio interview for the release of his album that week. And it's the carelessness too. People that, to me, commit crimes and going about regular life, that to me is a different type of sick in the brain. Like, if you could unalive somebody and go on with life like nothing happened, like you clicked out for real, for real. Like, you really clicked the heck out. He sent 2 additional texts to the victim's phone that day, which previously went unanswered. because she was already unalived. After April 26, 2025, defendant never attempted to contact her again. Tellingly, defendant subsequently purchased tools to carry out his plot to dismember and dispose of the victim's body. On April 24, 2025, defendant ordered a shovel from Home Depot that was delivered to his home from Postmates. On May 1st, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered 2 chainsaws to his home. On May 5th, 2025, defendant ordered and Amazon subsequently delivered a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable pool to his home. He made these purchases under the fake name Victoria Mendez. And then you're gonna use a girl name too. The pool part is where I feel like him ordering these tools, I feel like this is where he got help. Meaning he wasn't going to, I feel like, clean up all this stuff himself. I believe he told a close friend, y'all know who, allegedly. And then that close friend allegedly probably was gonna try to help him facilitate and clean it up. That's what I think really went down. Now the unaliving of her probably was done all himself, but either way, if you help somebody like clean up a crime scene like that for unaliving, you're an accessory at that point. He made these purchases under the fake name Victoria Mendez. On May 8, 2025, the defendant returned to the same area in Santa Barbara County, leaving his home around 11:30 p.m. He returned to the area again on May 31st, 2025. This is an isolated site-off SR-154 where the victim's identification was subsequently discovered in January 2026. Additionally, on July 7, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered a burn cage to his home under the same fake name as a part of his plan to incinerate evidence. Okay, so what he was going to do is chop up a body and then burn it. And the blood, to me, I think he was going to try to savor it and then use that in a form of a sacrificial way. This is why a lot of people say, and people don't be believing, when the industry is dark, the industry is dark. That blood was going to be savored, period, point blank. That was not going to be thrown away. He was going to keep that. And I can guarantee you what he would have did is use that in some form of like a sacrifice and then also use it for his merch. Because of course, y'all probably seen it everywhere. He sold the merch with the white shirts with the splatter, and he probably used that because they stopped the sale of the shirts. And I feel like he used some of that blood before, they went over his house and all that. He used some of that blood, in my opinion, and put it out in the merch as a form of sacrifice to push out the profits even more. Like it's a darker side to it than a lot of people like are realizing. I feel like he did that to even heighten up the profit for the sales of that certain item of that shirt. And I think he used a little bit of her blood for each item. Moreover, defendant took horrifying measures to destroy and discard the victim's body. After placing her body in the blue inflatable pool to prevent her blood from spilling into his garage floor, defendant used a chainsaw and perhaps other tools to cut off her limbs. Small blue fragments were found embedded in the victim's remains, which were collected by the LA County Medical Examiner's Department. The fragments were analyzed by the LAPD's Forensic Science Division Trace Analysis Unit. An expert was able to make a fit match from the blue fragments to the blue inflatable pool purchased by the defendant in May 2025. In order to distance himself from the victim, he amputated her left ring and pinky fingers because her ring contained a tattoo of his name. Her fingers have not been yet recovered. Now that's some nasty. And I wonder what he did with the fingers. That's another part he was probably going to use as a form of like a sacrifice type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like a dark prayer. He had her blood and then some of her limbs. Her fingers have not been recovered. Defendant then placed her head and torso into the cadaver bag that he purchased. He placed her limbs into a garbage bag, which he deposited into his front truck, laying the cadaver bag on top. For several weeks or possible months, defendant left the victim's body to decompose inside his Tesla. He lied to friends, business associates, and others who noticed the strong smell of decay in and around his home and vehicle. before leaving on his concert tour at the end of July. See, he parked his Tesla on the street around the corner from his home. And this is where I think the friend, whoever that was supposed to take that body and put it somewhere else. LAPD served a search warrant at the defendant's home at 1368 Doney Place on September 17, 2025, after the victim was identified by the LA County Medical Examiner on September 16, 2025. Oh, that's around my birthday. Ooh. Inside the garage, detectives discovered evidence consistent with the dismemberment of the victim's body in the inflatable pool, which contained multiple linear cuts, several biological samples which tested positive for blood, which were collected within the garage area. DNA analysis determined that the various samples matched the victim's unique genetic profile. On December 9, 2025, the medical examiner ruled the victim's death a homicide caused by two penetrating injuries to his torso, which we all heard throughout the media. Okay, so then they started talking about the evidence that they do have, which is, like I read before, the text messages about them having intercourse, the plan B, unaliving of a child. So with them talking about the plan B and all that, that's given that she may have been with child. Because why are y'all talking about a plan B if y'all don't need a plan B? So was she pregnant at the time that he unalived her? So that may be the case. He may have been pregnant. She may have been pregnant around that time frame. And that's probably why another reason why he did not want her to be alive, because if she had that baby or was going to keep the baby, he would not be able to deny being with a minor. It's one thing if she would have came out and said, "Hey, I've been dealing with him, blah, blah, blah." He could just lie and be like, "No, she's lying. I only met her once. All this evidence she providing is AI." Because that's the common excuse now. Everybody's saying it's AI, right? Everything AI, AI, AI. But a child cannot be AI. If she kept that baby allegedly, he would have been really, because now you dealing with a minor and then you got the minor pregnant. So now you're gonna go to jail 2 times over because you got a minor pregnant and you're dealing with a minor. So I feel like that's what really pushed him to do it, was her being probably pregnant. Had she not, I don't think, got pregnant, he probably wouldn't have done it, or he probably would have maybe got somebody else to do it. Who knows? Okay. And messages through March 2025 prove defendant continued to manipulate the victim as she messaged, "All we do is have SEX and just hang out, man. I want more than that for myself." These messages were obtained from the defendant's iCloud data. Surveillance video from the defendant driving his Tesla on July 29, 2025 for the first time before parking the vehicle and leaving for tour at the end of July. Okay, and then they all talk about the evidence with the ordering of the stuff that he was going to use to be able to cover up the crime. Okay, at this point he's cooked, and I really feel like they're going to give him the death penalty. I don't think they're going to let him get away with it. I don't think they're going to let him just get away with life. I feel like they're going to try to make an example out of him. First of all, you're black. Second of all, you're dealing with children. Third of all, you're a celebrity. They're really going to try to make an example out of you. You're a black celebrity. Like, that's one of the worst things you could do, is do something like that, being a black celebrity. Because the LAPD is going to, and the courts are going to make an example out of you, because they're going to say, you're black ass, these black ass celebrities not going to do anything they want to do and think they could get away with it just because they got some money. We're going to make an example out your black ass. Straight up. And I really feel like they're going to end up pursuing the death penalty, to be honest. Just because of the severity of the crime, too. I'm not even mad at it if they do decide to do it, because it was no remorse in what he did and how he did it. And not even for them about that. It's the idioticness of how he did it. Like, you didn't even think, my nigga. You're just a dumbass. Straight up. Like, you're just an idiot. The way that you went about doing everything. So for that, I do believe he deserves the death penalty. Like, you gonna do it, you better be able to know what it's gonna cost at the end of the day. Okay. Let me know what y'all think about these gruesome details. I still believe that the parents should have done a lot more to have and to push for their daughter to not end up being around him for all that time. Because think about it, when she was out and about and on tour with him and all that, what were the parents? Were they just like, okay, she ran away again? Oh well. Because one thing that people don't realize when it comes to officers and everything like that, runaways, they tend to get very frustrated with cases like that, especially if it's on a repetitive basis. So I really feel like the parents, after a while, started to give up because they were sick and tired of having to contact law enforcement about the same thing, and then the law enforcement asking them for details. Where could she be? Where is she? Where do you think? Where did you last seen her and all that? And they probably don't even have an answer. Whole time she's in London somewhere there in the U.S. You see what I'm saying? Does that give them an excuse? No, because you should have whooped the fucking ass straight up. Okay. Anyways, y'all, let me know what y'all think down below about all this. Are y'all shocked at some of the details? And do you guys agree with how of what I think? Of the fact that I think it's more than one person involved in this, and I feel like another person was either in the presence of her being unalived and he did it himself, and I believe another person was involved in the cover up of it but did not go all the way through. Okay, stay tuned for more videos. I'm gonna drop a video on Ebner Entertains, so stay tuned for that. We're gonna be talking about Portia and all that. All right, let me know what y'all think, and we have babies.